Okay, welcome back, Franco. You weren't named after one of my best friends, football star Franco Harris, were you?
Actually, my name is Francesco Lombardo. It's just Franco for short. But it's funny you say that because I was a big fan of Franco Harris. I thought he
Mm,
was a great running back,
Great running
and
back,
to
and
this day, I'm still a big fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
so my great running back, and he was an usher in my wedding, and the bridesmaids, and I think even my bride at that time wanted to walk down the aisle with him instead of me. I'm not sure. So it was great.
I could say something, but
Nah,
I won't.
it's okay. So you've got a great background of accomplishments around human capital, meaning people, and we call them talent a lot of times in our business. Working in financial services, wealth management, obviously family offices, um, you know, leadership development, we call it a lot. There's a lot of terms out there. First of all, can you share with us how you've evolved in your career, and are you at the place where you said this is what I want, this is where I want to be when I grow up?
So the answer to that question is a resounding yes, absolutely. I don't consider what I do work. I get to travel the world, meet some amazing individuals, hear some great stories, and truly connect with them. So how did I evolve into this? As I mentioned earlier, I started in the wealth management business, and one of the things that I realized is that the more money I made, the bigger of an asshole I was. And I looked at that and I said, okay, why is that? I'm really unhappy here. And I started on the path of personal development. I went down my rabbit hole. I found my mentor, a guy by the name of Dov Barrett, who's still my mentor to this day. And I asked the question, why am I doing this? And what I realized was that I was trying to use money as a tool to fill this enormous hole that I had inside of me that I didn't feel significant for whatever a number of issues occurred to me as a child.
Sure.
So I was under this illusion that money would create safety. And as I started to understand myself, I was still in the wealth management business at the time, and I remember going to a conference and hearing a gentleman by the name of David Asper speak, which is one of Canada's very prominent families. And he was talking about the challenges he was having with his dad and his sibs. And it wasn't about the technical issues, it was about the human issues. And I realized I had a skill set to solve those issues. I had no idea how, but I knew I could solve them. And that was about a dozen years ago.
Very cool. It's good to hear that the answer that yes, I am where I want it to be when I grow up, because I would say, unfortunately, 50% of the people you talk to out there aren't, then they haven't reached that stage. So it's really good stuff. With respect to, we call it talent in executive search business, we focus for our clients where the individuals we talk to and their families have to be the right fit for management and, back and forth. Talk to us about your experiences where you say, people are still the number one asset, and what you find leaders or patriarchs of family offices, if you will, high net worth people have to offer the family members, their employees, what has to happen in that family office, in that whole scenario to make it work?
So I'll answer it this way. I believe that every single one of us, regardless of gender, race, net worth, want to feel safe. We want to feel safe in our environments, which includes our work environments. We want to feel safe in our relationships, familial, but also co-worker relationships. And we also want to feel safe with our wealth, which includes the businesses and the operations that these folks run. So safety starts with the individual. People talk about this overarching theme of governance, that we've got governance, and with governance, everything is going to be fine. But in reality, that governance is meant to govern the individuals within the organization. And if you have individuals with bad behavior, the governance is not as effective and efficient as it could be. And that creates a culture of unsafety. So the work we focus on starts with the individual. The individual has to feel safe with themselves first. Now let me define safety so we are all on the same page. So safety means competent in one's role, both intellectually and emotionally. Confident in one's decision-making, both intellectually and emotionally. Understands their triggers. So why do they behave the way they do? But more importantly, the impact those behaviors have on others, which could be their bosses, or parents, or their fellow employee, or fellow coworkers. Understand their money model, which is the emotional blueprint around money, and the impact that has on financial decision-making. And finally, is comfortable dealing with conflict in a healthy manner. So if an individual feels safe with themselves, so for example, you and I, Mark, let's say that we're brothers, work in a business, and you're the much older, obviously much better looking brother, and you're the CEO of the shop too. I have to feel safe within myself to trust that you've got our best interest. Then I've got to feel safe in the relationship, and vice versa. You got to feel safe with me that I've got your back, that I trust in running the shop. So safety is paramount, and it goes back to that very basic need of we all want to feel safe.
No, it's brilliant, and we did a video roundtable a little while back with Franco Harris and Carolyn Bivens, who was the first female commissioner of a sports league and a USA Today executive before, and it was around the Donald Sterling Clippers thing, and it was about leadership and prejudice, and it was about leaders truly create, a safe place for people to not allow that to happen in their company, not allowed to have the racial prejudice, bullying, things like that. They create a safe place versus space, but in fact the same, to allow people to be who they want to be and not allow bad things to happen. Similarities?
Absolutely, right? Because if I feel safe within myself, others are going to be drawn to me, and they're going to want to find out what their safe space is. And then when there's two of us that have a safe space, others are drawn to us, and we start to create a culture of safety. And what's fascinating is that human beings actually feel unsafe in safe space. And that's a weird thing to say. And the reason that is because unsafe is normal for them. Safe space is not normal. So they're going to shy away from that. So it's easier to operate in this illusion of safety, which is the unsafe space. And there's lots of things that contribute to that. Obviously power, money, control, status. These are all things that create the illusion of safety, when in reality, they create unsafety. So when you have a leader, like the owner of the LA Clippers, I forget his name at the moment, who clearly didn't feel safe with himself, he created that culture of unsafety. And it just trickles down. Now, the leader that feels safe with themselves inspires and empowers others to find their own safe space, and you create that culture of safety.
It's interesting because with our clients, we're always engaged with them on creating a culture that will attract the A players, the ones that want to win the championship, the ones that want to be successful, but also have a why. They want to make a difference. How does a leader or management of a company brand that they're that type of place, or even a family office for that matter, because we recruit a lot of people for family offices also. How do they put that out there, show that it's a safe space to help attract those A players?
Well, the answer is really simple. They got to live it, right? They have to be living the safe space. We all know of companies or individuals that say, my core, I'm just going to pick something, my core value is integrity. Fabulous. So show me how you're living integrity. Mm-hmm. Show me how you're living integrity when the tough decisions come to face. Are you living integrity based on what really matters to you? Right? So the work that we do with families is we say, listen, we're going to help you create a safe space. We're going to take you through a process, starting with individuals and then collectively as a group, and we're going to end up with a document called the Family Wealth Constitution, which is basically their cultural governance document. Mm-hmm. But it's not the document that matters. It's the living the document that matters. I was on a call yesterday with a client of mine from Perth, and she says, I finally get it. I said, tell me, Rosa. She goes, I get that the value of the process is living the safe space. I said, ta-da, exactly. Right? So we can't pretend to live safe space, because others will feel it. Having said that, when we're living it, others feel that too, and they're drawn in.
So, I hate when people actually say, "Oh, your startup is just like," but we talk, Franklin, Stephen Covey used to talk a lot about trust, and we talk a lot about that too. In fact, in the organization we're involved in, Million Peacemakers with Nonflict, you're gaining trust by resolving conflict. Is that kind of related?
Very much so, because being familiar with conflict as you are, part of creating the safe space and creating why conflict works is because individuals are able to be vulnerable with each other. They're able to share, here's what's really going on with me, right? And the thing with vulnerability is there's one thing to talk about it. There's another thing to be vulnerable. And vulnerable, my definition is being able to share where I'm at, owning the position that I'm at, and then taking action to recommit to what matters most to me. Otherwise, I'm just so the example is, I'm going to be vulnerable and say, I'm an alcoholic, and by the way, make that a single instead of a double. Yeah, that's not really the same, right? It's about taking action. So safe space and peace, which is what conflict is about, are all about taking action. And it starts with being willing to be open with oneself. And then as we feel safe within ourselves, we start to feel safe with others, and we start to open up to them, and that inspires them to do the same.
Yeah, it's
and you talked about purpose. I remember the day that I really figured out what my purpose was. And all of a sudden, the light went on. I went, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So my purpose is to create a safer world. And where did that come from? It came from a place that I didn't feel safe as a child. So my safe space is about creating safe space, which is aligned with my purpose. Right? So there's a little equation that we take individuals through. So if you're a listener, I recommend you grab a pen and a piece of paper. Okay, so now that you've got that, just on the left-hand side of the margin, write the word belief. Now, a little arrow that goes to the right, write the word gig. Now, gig's a fancy word that we use for our behaviors. Now, another little arrow that goes to the right, and either write the word mask or draw a mask, if you're feeling creative. And then another arrow to the right, past the mask, and write the words safe space. Now, here's how we, as human beings, play this game. We all have a core negative belief or our wound or our conditioning. If people say they don't have one, they're lying, because we all have one. So that comes from childhood. Now that is going to influence the behaviors that we have, which are the gigs. Now every one of us plays a different gig, but we've got we'll fall into one of 6 categories. So as I'm saying this, think of which one you are as an individual, as a listener, or maybe it's your spouse or your partner or a fellow team member. So there's the avoider, there's the people pleaser, there's the manipulator, so they withhold information to gain power and stature. There's the rescue, they got to come in and save everybody. There's the right fighter, they fight to be right, they got to have the last word. And finally, there's the victim, who takes no accountability or responsibility, and everyone's against them. Now, the mask is the lie one tells oneself to perpetuate the belief and to justify the behavior. So it's how we justify our actions, and we're always constantly justifying why we do stuff that doesn't serve us. Now, just past the mask is this place called safe space. And as I said earlier, we all crave for it, we long for it, we want it. But here's the catch. We can't find, create, or maintain safe space wearing the mask, playing the gig. So how do we get there is we have to be vulnerable first with ourselves. Say, hey, this is my negative belief. Here's the gig that I wear, which is like saying, here's how I like my coffee. And then here's the mask that I wear when I play the gig. And interestingly enough, Mark, safe space is actually what we didn't get enough as a child, what we wanted more of as a child, and that thing that we don't get from others that really pisses us off. So, for example, if another person is constantly, not telling the truth and they're not in integrity, chances are your safe space is about integrity. And what's really fascinating is our safe space is actually the core and foundation of our life purpose.
No, it's brilliant.
So can you imagine, as a family office or as a company, creating a culture of safety from the top down, where the CEO has a culture of safety with himself, with his executive team, and then with their direct reports, and then with their staff members, and then with their suppliers and their customers. Now we got something that's very valuable.
Absolutely. That's the most valuable, and people actually enjoy being there.
And it goes back to investing in the most valuable asset class, which is the human capital, which goes all the way from the CEO down to the janitor. They're all human capital. They're all valuable.
I do remember, to complete this part of the video here, I do remember NASA and the janitor always said, when they were going to Mars or the moon and whatnot, that he felt totally part of the team that helped them get to the moon, because that's how they treated him, that he was part of the team to get to the moon.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, right. And it's about team. And if there's actually, I just want to share with the listener a great book that I'm reading. I don't know if you've read this one. It's called Legacy,
No,
by James Kerr, Kerr. And James talks about what the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand national rugby team, can teach us about the business of life. And one of the things, they've got a couple of guiding principles, which I'll just share really quickly. So the first one is, when the match is over, the senior guys on the team will sweep the change room. It's called sweeping the shed.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we're all on the same page here. The second one is, which I really love, is leave the jersey in a better place. So that means it's an honor and a privilege to wear the jersey, play to the highest of your ability, so the next guy coming in has to step up to there and then take it to the next level. So that means that as a team, they're always going to the next level.
I love that.
And the other piece is, when you're at the top of your game, change your game. So I was watching them play Australia in the 2015 Rugby World Cup Finals. And at the half, there was a player by the name of Conrad Smith, who was the best New Zealand performing player on the team at the half. Coach subbed him out, not for injury, for tactical reasons. The guy that came on set up 2 plays that won them the World Cup final. Now that's counterintuitive, to
Right.
take out your best performing player. But that's another example of having a safe space to trust yourself and your abilities, trust your team for the culture of the team.
I love it. That's a great analogy to sports, and it reminds me of play for the crest on the front, not the name on the back.
That's right. That's exactly it.
Very cool.
So if family offices and leadership teams can think of, how am I creating safe space by leaving my jersey in a better place, it's a pretty powerful team.
That's what wins championships. Great stuff, Franco. Can we just complete this part by telling us a little bit about the Scone Project?
Oh, yeah. So the Scoon Project is my favorite project. Scoon. It's in Scotland. So Scoon is the crowning place of all the Scottish kings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my very, very favorite project that I'm involved in. And what it is it's a 4-day experiential leadership development program designed for intergenerational members of families of wealth. And what we do is we literally create a safe space for them to step into, to talk about the issues that they may not have access to talk about anywhere else. So to put it in context, as one of our participants last year from Australia said, I've got a lot of mates I can play tennis with. I don't have too many people I can talk about what's really going on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we help create what are called contributing leaders, so that they're not crushed by privilege, which is, as my partner William Stormont says, he wanted to create a sort of a self-help program for himself, but also help his peers, because he was actually saddened by how many examples there are out there of people that have been crushed by privilege because they're not properly prepared. They don't feel safe holding the privilege.
Right. It's a beautiful thing. You're doing good work, sir. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I like I said earlier, I don't consider what I do work. I get to hang out with some amazing people, hear some great stories, and create safe space for them, and at the same time fulfill my purpose, which is creating a safer world.
I love it. Congrats.
Thank you.